The National Toy Hall of Fame, established in 1998, recognizes toys that have inspired creative play and enjoyed popularity over a sustained period. Each year, the prestigious hall inducts new honorees and showcases both new and historic versions of classic toys beloved by generations. Some of the toys that you might recognize include Barbie, inducted in 1998, Mr. Potato Head, inducted in 2000, and also the Slinky, inducted in 2000. Today we are featuring Raggedy Ann and Andy. These beloved dolls were inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame in 2002 and 2007. These dolls were created by Johnny Gruelle in 1915. In 1920, Gruelle introduced the Raggedy Ann stories. In them, when humans weren't looking, Raggedy Ann and Andy came to life and embarked on many adventures. Today we're going to read two stories from Raggedy Ann and Andy, a read-aloud treasury. This was written by Johnny Gruelle. The first story that we're going to read is how Raggedy Ann and Andy came to Marcella's house. Marcella liked to play up in the attic at Grandma's quaint old house way out in the country, for there were so many old forgotten things to find up there. One day when Marcella was up in the attic and had played with the old spinning wheel until she had grown tired of it, she curled up on an old horsehair sofa to rest. "I wonder what is in that barrel back in the corner," she thought, as she jumped from the sofa and climbed over two dusty trunks to the barrel standing back under the eaves. It was quite dark back there, so when Marcella had pulled a large bundle of things from the barrel, she took them over to the window where she could see better. There was a funny little bonnet with long white ribbons. Marcella put it on. In an old bag she found a number of old photographs of odd-looking men and women in old-fashioned clothes. And there was one picture of a very pretty little girl with long curls tied tightly from her forehead and wearing a long dress and white pantaloons that reached to her shoe tops. And then, out of the heap, she pulled an old rag doll with only one shoe-button eye, a painted nose, and a smiling mouth. Her dress was of soft material, blue with pretty little flowers and dots all over it. Forgetting everything else in the happiness of her find, Marcella snatched up the rag doll and ran downstairs to show it to Grandma. "Well, well, where did you find it?" Grandma cried. "It's old Raggedy Ann." She hung the doll to her chest. "I had forgotten her. She has been in the attic for 50 years, I guess," said Grandma. "Well, well, dear old Raggedy Ann, I will sew another button on her right away." Grandma went to the sewing machine drawer and took out her needle and thread. Marcella watched the sewing while Grandma explained how she had played with Raggedy Ann when she was a little girl. "Now," Grandma said when she was finished, "Raggedy Ann, you have two fine shoe-button eyes, and with them you can see the changes that have taken place in the world while you have been shut up so long in the attic. For Raggedy Ann, you have a new playmate and a mistress now, and I hope you both will have as much happiness together as you and I used to have." Then Grandma gave Raggedy Ann to Marcella, saying very seriously, "Marcella, let me introduce my very dear friend, Raggedy Ann. Raggedy, this is my granddaughter, Marcella." And Grandma gave the doll a twitch with her fingers in such a way that the rag doll nodded her head to Marcella. "Oh, Grandma, thank you ever and ever so much," Marcella cried as she gave Grandma a hug and a kiss. "Raggedy Ann and I will have loads of fun." And this is how Raggedy Ann joined the doll family at Marcella's house. Soon, Raggedy Ann was a much beloved member of the doll family, which included the French doll, poor Susan, who had fallen and cracked her head, Henny, the Dutch doll, Uncle Clem, Aunt the Tin Soldier, the Jumping Jack, and more. Then, one day, Daddy took Raggedy Ann down to his office and propped her up against some books upon his desk. He wanted to see her cheery smile all day, for as you must surely know, smiles and happiness are truly catching. Daddy wished to catch a whole lot of Raggedy Ann's cheeriness and happiness, and to put it all down on paper so that those who did not have Raggedy Ann dolls might see just how happy and smiling a rag doll can be. So Raggedy Ann stayed in Daddy's studio for 3 or 4 days. She was missed very, very much at home, and Marcella really longed for her, but she knew that Daddy was borrowing some of Raggedy Ann's sunshine, so she did not complain. Raggedy Ann did not complain either, for no one, not even a rag doll, ever complains if they have such happiness about them. One evening, just as Daddy was finishing his day's work, a messenger boy came with a package, a nice, soft, lumpy package. Daddy opened the nice, soft, lumpy package and found a letter. Grandma had told Daddy long before this that at the time Raggedy Ann was made, a neighbor lady had made a boy doll, Raggedy Andy, for her little girl, who always played with Grandma. And when Grandma told Daddy this, she wondered whatever had become of her little playmate and the boy doll, Raggedy Andy. After reading the letter, Daddy opened the other package, which had been inside the nice, soft, lumpy package, and found Raggedy Andy. Raggedy Andy's soft, floppy arms were folded up in front of him, and his long legs were folded over his arms, and they were held this way by a rubber band. Raggedy Andy must have wondered why he was being done up this way, but it could not have caused him any worry, for in between where his feet came over his face, Daddy saw his cheery smile. After slipping off the rubber band, Daddy smoothed out the wrinkles in Raggedy Andy's arms and legs. Then Daddy propped Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy up against the books on his desk so they sat facing each other, Raggedy Ann's shoe-button eyes looking straight into the shoe-button eyes of Raggedy Andy. They could not speak, not right out before a real person, so they just sat there and smiled at each other. Daddy could not help reaching out his hands and feeling their throats. Yes, there was a lump in Raggedy Ann's throat, and there was a lump in Raggedy Andy's throat. A cotton lump, to be sure, but lump nevertheless. "So Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy, that's why you cannot talk, is it?" asked Daddy. "I will go away and let you have your visit to yourselves, although it is good to sit and share your happiness by watching you." Daddy then took the rubber band and placed it around Raggedy Ann's right hand and around Raggedy Andy's right hand, so that when he had fixed it properly, they sat and held each other's hands. Daddy knew they wished to tell each other all the wonderful things that had happened to them since they had parted more than 50 years before. So locking his studio door, Daddy left the two old rag dolls looking into each other's eyes. The next morning, when Daddy unlocked his door and looked at his desk, he saw Raggedy Andy had fallen over, so that he lay with his head on the bend of Raggedy Ann's arm. So that is the story of how Raggedy Ann and Andy came to live at Marcella's house. Marcella found them in the attic of her grandmother's house, and once she saw them, she knew she couldn't live without them. Once her dad saw them, he knew that he needed to write their stories down so that he could share their happiness with children all over. As you read through this treasury of stories, you will find that Raggedy Ann and Andy have many adventures. In the next adventure, we are going to see that Raggedy Ann learns a lesson. One day, the dolls were left all to themselves. Their little mistress had placed them all around the room and told them to be nice children while she was away. And there they sat and never even so much as wiggled a finger until Marcella had left the room. Then the tin soldier doll turned his head and solemnly winked at Raggedy Ann. And when the front gate clicked and the dollies knew they were all alone in the house, they all scrambled to their feet. "Now let's have a good time," cried the tin soldier. "Let's all go in search of something to eat." "Yes, let's all go in search of something to eat," cried Henny the Dutch doll. "When Mistress had me out playing with her this morning," said Raggedy Ann, "she carried me by a door near the back of the house, and I smelled something that smelled as if it would taste delicious." "Then you lead the way, Raggedy Ann," cried the French doll. "I think it would be a good plan to elect Raggedy Ann as our leader on this expedition," said the tin soldier. At this, all the other dolls clapped their hands together and shouted, "Hooray, Raggedy Ann will be our leader." So Raggedy Ann, very proud indeed to have the confidence and love of all the other dollies, said that she would be very glad to be their leader. "Follow me," she cried, as her wobbly legs carried her across the floor at a lively pace. The other dollies followed, racing about the house until they came to the pantry door. "This is the place," cried Raggedy Ann, and sure enough, all the dollies smelled something they knew must be very good to eat. But none of the dollies was tall enough to open the door, and although they pushed and pulled with all their might, the door remained tightly closed. The dollies were talking and pulling and pushing, and every once in a while one would fall over and the others would step on him or her in their efforts to open the door. Finally, Raggedy Ann drew away from the others and sat down on the floor. When the other dollies discovered Raggedy Ann sitting there, running her rag hands through her yarn hair, they knew she was thinking. "Shh," they said to each other, and quietly went over near Raggedy Ann and sat down in front of her. "There must be a way to get inside," said Raggedy Ann. "Raggedy Ann says there must be a way to get inside," cried all the dolls. "I can't seem to think clearly today," Raggedy explained. "It feels as if my head were ripped." At this, the French doll ran to Raggedy Ann and took off her bonnet. "Yes, there is a rip in your head, Raggedy," she said, and pulled a pin from her skirt and pinned up Raggedy's head. "It's not a very neat job, for I got some puckers in it," she said. "Oh, that is ever so much better," cried Raggedy Ann. "Now I can think quite clearly. My thoughts must have leaked out the rip before. Now I can think so clearly," said Raggedy Ann. "I think the door must be locked, and to get in, we must unlock it." "That will be easy," said the Dutch doll, who says "Mama" when he is tipped backward and forward, "for we will have the brave tin soldier shoot the key out of the lock." "I can easily do that," cried the tin soldier as he raised his gun. "Oh, Raggedy Ann," cried the French dolly, "please do not let him shoot." "No," said Raggedy Ann, "we must think of a quieter way." After thinking quite hard for a moment, Raggedy Ann jumped up and said, "I have it!" And she caught up the jumping jack and held him up to the door. Then Jack slid up his stick and unlocked the door. Then the dollies all pushed and the door swung open. My, such a scramble! The dogs piled over one another in their desire to be the first at the goodies. They swarmed upon the pantry shelves, and in their eagerness spilled a pitcher of cream, which ran all over the French dolly's dress. The Dutch doll found some cornbread, and dipping it in the molasses, he sat down for a good feast. A jar of raspberry jam was overturned, and the dollies ate of this until their faces were all purple. The tin soldier fell from the shelf 3 times and bent one of his tin legs, but he scrambled right back up again. Never had the dolls had so much fun and excitement, and they had all eaten their fill when they had heard the click of the front gate. They did not make time to climb from the shelves, but all rolled or jumped off the floor and scrambled back to the nursery as fast as they could run, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs and jam along the way. Just as their mistress came into the room, the dolls all dropped in, whatever positions they had happened to be in. "This is funny," cried Mistress. They were all left sitting in their places around the room. "I wonder if Fido has been shaking them up." Then she saw Raggedy Ann's face and picked her up. "Why, Raggedy Ann, you are all sticky. I do believe you are covered with jam." And Mistress tasted Raggedy Ann's hand. "Yes, it is jam. Shame on you, Raggedy Ann. You've been in the pantry and all the others too." And with this, the doll's mistress dropped Raggedy Ann on the floor and left the room. And when she came back, she had on an apron and her sleeves were rolled up. She picked up all the sticky dolls and, putting them in a basket, carried them out under the apple tree in the garden. There she had placed her little tub and wringer, and she took the dolls one at a time and scrubbed them with a scrubbing brush and soused them up and down and this way and that in the soap suds until they were clean. Then she hung them all on the clothesline in the sun to dry. There the dolls hung all day, swinging and twisting about in the breeze. "I do believe she scrubbed my face so hard that she wore off my smile," said Raggedy Ann after an hour of silence. "No, it's still there," said the tin soldier as the wind twisted him around so he could see Raggedy Ann. "But I do believe my arms will never work without squeaking. They feel so rusted," he added. Late in the afternoon the back door opened and the little mistress came out with the table and chairs. After setting the table, she took all the dolls from the line and placed them about the table. They had lemonade with grape jelly in it, which made it a beautiful lavender color, and a little baby teeny-weeny cookies and with powdered sugar on them. After this lovely dinner, the dollies were taken in the house, where they had their hair brushed and nice clean nighties put on. Then they were placed in their beds, and Mistress kissed each one good night and tiptoed from the room. All the dollies lay as still as mice for a few minutes. Then Raggedy Ann raised up on her cotton-stuffed elbows and said, "I've been thinking our mistress gave us the nice dinner out under the trees to teach us a lesson. She wished us to know that we could have had all the goodies we wished, whenever we wished, if we had behaved ourselves. And our lesson was that we must never take without asking what we could always have for the asking. So let us remember and try never again to do anything that might cause those who love us any unhappiness." "Let us all remember," chimed all the other dollies. And Raggedy Ann, with a merry twinkle in her shoe-button eyes, lay back in her little bed, her cotton head filled with thoughts of love and happiness. That was one of the many adventures that Raggedy Ann and Andy experience in this great book of treasured stories. Now I would like for us to go on our own adventure. Today we're going to create our very own Raggedy Ann doll. To do this, you're going to need the following: the template of Raggedy Ann, some empty toilet paper rolls, a pair of scissors, a thing of Elmer's glue. The first step is to cut out all of the pieces of Raggedy Ann. Next, you want to take the individual pieces and glue them in the appropriate spots on the toilet paper roll. For example, Raggedy Ann's dress goes around the toilet paper roll. Then glue her head onto the top of the toilet paper roll. And last, take the arms and the feet and glue them where the arms should go and where the feet should go. At last, you have your very own Raggedy Ann dolls to experience many adventures within your home.